a more strategic placement of myself this time. I'm underneath some overhanging canopy on the upriver, just upriver of where I saw that big bear last evening. So I can see up this river, up this chunk of river quite a ways easily. And we'll see if this big guy comes out again this evening. Right behind me while I'm getting some email shares out to you guys. Brought my old phone. So I got a lot of the email saved to it. It's clouded over. It's looking like it might rain. I'm worried it might be lightning. Everything. The forest is absolutely dry, so dry. And if those clouds up there are getting ready to fire down some lightning, we're in trouble, man. Big trouble. Anyway, let's see if something comes out while I'm sharing this evening. I like hearing all the eagles and everything feeding. It's pretty cool. Alright, here we go. What do we got? Hello Steve, my name is Adam. I live in Pennsylvania, and the following account happened here too. I just found your channel this past week and realized this is the place to finally share and be heard. Yes, it is. Anyways, right to the point. One night around midnight when I was 14, my father and I went to this field surrounded by a tree line of forest across the lane from my house to scout for a good hunting spot. This was just an excuse to get my father to come out on a spontaneous nighttime adventure with me. To be honest, I had no true interest in hunting at the time. And on our way back to the house, we were about halfway through that field, speaking to each other, facing each other, and walking. All of a sudden, everything, and I mean absolutely every effing thing, lit up the whitest you've ever seen. I saw my dad's nose and lips cast a pitch black shadow across his face where the light couldn't touch. His face and body and the grass and trees were all pure white. Everything the light couldn't touch was pitch black like a black hole. I could see the entire tree line on the other side of the field, lit up pure effing white. It was the brightest thing I've ever seen in my life, but the thing was, it didn't hurt my eyes like a flashlight or the sun would. It caused me to whip my head to the right to see the source of the light. As I looked over to see it, all of the insanely illuminating light retracted and sucked back into a large, floating orb of pure white light, probably 10 feet or so in diameter, hovering probably 20 feet off the ground, maybe 200 to 300 yards away. It hovered there only long enough to just let me see it and let it sink in, maybe 2 or 3 seconds. Then it beamed directly up into the sky at like 1,000 miles per hour. Then nothing. Me and my dad were in shock and didn't say a word for like a minute until I said, "Did you see that?" And he said, "I don't understand what I just saw. If you didn't say anything, I wouldn't have believed that just happened." Afterwards, it felt like I was walking through the best I can describe was static air. Like the very air had an electric charge. Maybe that was the nerves, though, but it stands out as the single most incredible moment of my life. Me and my father were flashed with an illuminating light flash from a floating pure white orb of light that beamed into the sky. Whenever I look back on it, I get a lump in my throat, chills, goosebumps, teary eyes, and I don't understand why. I didn't feel fear after seeing it, just shock. All I know is my father swears it happened when we entered, and I swear it happened on the way out. Either way, it was absolutely amazing, and I'll never forget it. If this gets to you, thank you so much for your time reading this. Take care, Steve. I wasn't going to share it directly to you, but the comments I received on your videos that I first posted this on were encouraging, being able to reach others who've had this experience. To this day, I still think about it every other day or so, and it's been almost 10 years. Holy shit, Adam. That's a holy shit experience, right? I can't say I've experienced that, but I can guarantee you, almost guarantee, there's going to be somebody listening by now here that probably has had something similar happen to them, right? There's so much going on. And if any of you fellow hunters, anglers, hikers, you've got something like this happen to you, and you want to share, get off your chest, look for somebody else that's seen the same shit you have, then get it in and email it in, right? It's enough of the bullshit. It's enough of the misinformed, non-informed, lied to. I tell you what, I've had it up to the nuts. I've seriously had it up to the nuts with the bullshit that's going on when it comes to all of us in our lives and our one lifetime we're given here that we know about. Brutal. Thanks for sending that in again, Adam. We'll try to get to the bottom of these things, all right? Encounter at Delmo Lake. I believe I had an encounter with a savvy at Delmo Lake near Butte, Montana in 2019 while I was fishing with a buddy. Strangely enough, he was telling me about an indescribable noise he heard while he was out camping with some other buddies that went on all night. No sooner after he told me about it did the same noise start coming out of the timber around us. It sounded like a mixture of a growl, a higher pitched yell, similar to tenor voice range, and a couple of other elements that I simply cannot place or explain. Aside from the noise, there were two other things that were just not right. First, it would vocalize and then move location a couple hundred yards either to the front left or rear left of us with varying distance. The furthest sound sounded about 100 yards away, and the closest being around 30 yards or so away, and would vocalize about every 15 to 30 seconds. Second was the extreme level of unease that came over the both of us, suddenly and forcefully. Neither of us saw anything through the timber or heard any movement. It also got dead quiet during this. After about a half hour of this thing making noise, my buddy and I decided that it was a little bit past time to go. We packed up what we thought was everything and wasted no time getting back to my rig. Unfortunately, when we got there, I realized that my brilliance had forgot to grab my tackle box and I went to retrieve it alone. I had just got back to the shoreline when this overwhelming sense of get the F out hit me like a truck. Needless to say, I hightailed it out of there and haven't gone back to that particular corner of the lake since. It wasn't until I started watching your videos about 2 months ago that it dawned on me that I may very well have had an encounter with a savvy that day. Thank you for all you do and for having a place that people can share their experiences without ridicule. Ryan. I don't care if you use my name or not. Stay safe out there, bud, and look forward to seeing more videos from you. Okay, Ryan. Appreciate that you shared that, especially appreciate you said where it was. If you've been listening to all the people on my channel for some time now, you know you're not alone, right? You know it's happened literally thousands of times, all right? You're not alone. There's nothing to be ashamed of, and there's definitely nothing to be scared of anymore when it comes to sharing and talking out loud, all right? If you hear of or find out anything that you feel people can benefit from in the future, speak out loud about it and get it out to me at least, all right? And I'll get it shared with people. There's a bear coming downriver. Might be that big one. I'll swing the camera for a minute and show you, and then I'm going to go back to sharing, all right? I don't know if that's that big one or not. That's where that big one came out yesterday. Exactly where. It's moving slow. No, it's moving kind of quick. I don't think it's going to be a big one. The big ones always seem like it's a slow motion lumber. anybody to share this one. I don't think I did, but I might have. Maybe read it earlier. I don't know. One more look. All right. Steve, my name is Eddie Flores, and I live in far west Texas in a city called El Paso. I've always had a job that allowed me to manage and socialize with a lot of people and have gathered several secondhand stories with individuals. Witness 1 and 2 were relayed to me in mid-2000. Witness 3 was informed to me around 2016-ish. Witness 1. Informed me of an encounter that happened on the east side of Franklin Mountains. A bunch of friends had gathered to go hiking and spend the night on one of the mountainside valleys / gorges. The hike was uneventful. They set up camp, ate and talked around the fire, and then they went to sleep. The witness was sleeping in a sleeping bag alongside her boyfriend at the time. She awoke in the middle of the night facing the fire that was still lit, lighting up the valley / gorge in a soft glow. She was shocked to see a large figure hunched over, standing on 2 legs with eyes that were reflecting the fire. It was looking at her opposite the fire. She was startled, to say the least, and her first reaction was to wake up her boyfriend by nudging him with her elbow, to no avail. So she turned around with her back to the being and shook him awake. Upon turning around, nothing was there. That sucks. That would really suck. Witness number 2. Had a similar encounter on the west side of the Franklin Mountains. She and her husband at the time liked to go camping on the west side of the Franklins in a location called Franklin's Nose. They never had anything happen to them until this one night. They're getting ready to go to sleep, and the husband decided to retrieve something from outside the tent. It had taken a while, and she was getting concerned. So, she looked out of the tent only to see a large, what she called a bear, walking on 2 legs, walking past their camp. When her husband made his way back into the tent, she asked if he had seen the bear. He said, "What bear?" Witness number 3. Was an old school friend of mine. The event transpired back in the late 70s or 80s. He was a desert rat just like I was at that age, spending any free time in the desert as I could. But one day he came across what he referred to as a weed igloo. It was very large inside and had fur lining the floor of the igloo. While being young, he paid no mind to it and went along his business. Fur lining the floor. I wonder if that was either something laying in it that had fur or hair growing off it, or was it actually hides, you know, the leather with the fur attached to it, or was it fur left over from a decaying corpse, right? That's all the above that I've ever found fur in my lifetime, but that sounds pretty amazing either way. But it just goes to show you, thanks for sending that in, but it just goes to show you what you come up with when you start asking people, right? That bear probably smelled it and booked it. Maybe. We'll go look for some more bears after, share a few more of these. Knowledge shared with me by a Cherokee man. Dear Steve, as you questioned, I will try to keep this lead in brief. After seeing the Patterson Gimlin footage as a teenager, I devoted over a dozen years of my life to trying to learn about these amazing beings and figure out what they may be. I ended up having 4 daytime encounters of my own, and after my last one, I chose to stop seeking them. That is another story for another time. I'll look forward to that one. I met some very interesting people while on that journey, and each one I met led me to others. I got to meet many people who were frightened by their encounters and wanted to talk to someone who would not think they were crazy. I found that every single person I spoke to firsthand, eye to eye, every single one of them were relieved to speak to somebody who knew exactly what they were talking about. About 10 years ago, a friend asked me if I would try to help a Cherokee man and his family who were having some very aggressive activity at the rural home in Kentucky, not far from the Daniel Boone National Forest. Since I no longer have this gentleman's contact information to obtain his permission to relate what he shared with me, I'll refer to him as Walter. I hope that I'm not breaking any bond by sharing this, but I feel it is so informative that it needs to be shared. I arrived at the rural homestead to meet Walter, his American wife, and their grandson that they were raising. Their small farmhouse sat in a bowl with farm fields behind them bordered by a creek and with a rise of ground and heavy hardwood forest on 3 sides. There were no other dwellings within several miles of the property. Walter's a very large man. I would estimate him 6'5", and he was packing a sizable handgun on his hip. It was quickly apparent that he was frightened. I asked him to tell me what was going on. He said it had been his habit since they had lived on the property to take their food scraps out to the edge of the woods for the wildlife. Over time, he began hearing activity around his home at night. And one night, while in bed, the bedroom wall was hit from the outside. Expecting that it might be local teenagers, he slipped quietly out the back door and moved down the side of the house, past the bedroom, and around the front where he almost walked straight into a Sasquatch. I know this Sasquatch is not the Cherokee name for these beings, but it is the term Walter chose to use when speaking with me. Terrified, he rushed back into the house and lay awake all night. As time went on, he began catching glimpses of a male and female that would emerge from the woods to take the food scraps after he put them out. Once he started to accept their presence, he started putting the food up off the ground on an old wagon bed. He explained that that was more respectful. Everything went on peacefully for some time. He was also hearing what sounded like children laughing in the woods, but he never saw any youngsters. The trouble began when a second male Sasquatch started showing up. Whenever Walter put the food out, this male would boldly show himself and vocalize aggressively, coming closer each day. Walter showed me a massive, muddy handprint behind the backside of his house where the new male had slapped it. It measured 12 inches from thumb to little finger. There was also a broken piece of asphalt siding with a dent the size of an orange in it. He said that's where a rock had been thrown with the force as he was retreating to the house. At this point, I asked if he did anything special when he put the food out, and he advised me that yes, he did a vocalization. I asked if he could do it for me, and his wife quickly stopped us and told me it would hurt my ears if he did it in the house. A light bulb went off for me, and I asked him if he could describe what he was doing. He explained that he was doing the same loud call he heard on the TV show Finding Bigfoot. I immediately urged him to stop doing that call, as who knows what it might mean to these beings. As Walter proceeded to describe the aggressive activity of the new male in detail, he told me that he had become so fearful for his family that he had called his tribal council and asked for advice. This is what I felt was important to share. His tribal council told him to take no action unless the aggressive male tried to come into the house. Holy shit, really? I think that might be waiting a little too long, because if he's actually seriously trying to get into the house, he's coming in the house. There's no two ways about it. And then what? Are you going to be fast enough to put a hole in his head? Is he going to give you enough warning that he's coming in? You know what I mean? Like, oh, this sounds kind of sketchy. Sketchy to me. It's like, oh, I don't know, man. Anyway, let's go on with the story. Sorry about the interruptions. It was imperative that he not act first. However, they also advised me if he tried to breach the house that the only shot that would stop him would be into the eye socket. They said there was a large, thick, bony plate over the chest and that it would take multiple rounds to penetrate it. As we visited that day, Walter also shared with me some of his tribal history with regard to these beings. He said that there was a time decades ago when the Cherokee would bring the Sasquatch to remote locations in the woods to participate in certain tribal ceremonies. He said the Sasquatch would lay down on the back of a horse-drawn wagons, and they would cover the wagon bed with a tarp. Apparently, they had to stop interacting this way when these beings began bothering the young native women. I had heard from a friend some reported rapes of women by these beings in an area around Anadarko, Oklahoma. When I asked Walter if he knew about the trouble in Anadarko, his eyebrows shot up and he looked down and nodded that yes, he was aware of it. Again, this is over 10 years ago, so I have no idea if there are any problems in that area any longer. I will end here and simply remind all what we have said so often, that listening to our Native American and First Nations brothers and sisters can give us a wealth of information. Since both of my children are government employees and my husband has a public-facing job, I will ask that you please withhold my name. Thank you for everything you are doing to bring solid, honest information to the round table of knowledge. Blessings to you and your family in your new home. Kindest regards, and thank you so much for that share. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't get enough of knowledge shared from the First Nations people of any continent. There is so much going on that we need to know about. So many troubled people out there that are troubled, and they shouldn't have been, because they should have been informed of what's running around the backyard before it happened, right? No bears behind me yet? It's funny, I'm watching up on the bank in the timber. I got big, deep, mature timber up above me here, and I'm just down below the bank. So I'm out of sight and I'm out of hearing range from anything. So anything comes over this bank, we're going to be eye to eye. It's all good. You ready? Titled Childhood Encounter. Hey Steve, I want to thank you for what you're doing, helping those of us who are scared for life for having an encounter with something that shouldn't exist. I grew up in the Ozarks, just outside Branson, Missouri. My parents' house was close to Table Rock Lake, surrounded with woods. There was 5 houses at the end of our road, and we were the only occupied house. This encounter happened when I was around 11. It was night out, and the moon was full. I rolled over on my bed, and a massive figure was standing right outside my window. My mother had put up these see-through. It really served no purpose at all. The moon cast down on this figure. I could see it was covered in hair. It was so close to me, it could have reached in and grabbed me. I couldn't make a sound. I could hear its breathing. Its face was in the shadows. Eventually, it took a step back and walked around the side of the house and went back into the woods. This happened around 1981. My dad was in law enforcement, so I got a tape measure and measured the footprints of my sister present. They were 18 inches long. The top of the window where the top of the head reached was 9 feet. For years after this happened, I wouldn't go outside at night. I had so many nightmares of it getting me. I grew up, joined the military, and moved away. Since Sabe exists, does that mean everything else exists? We really don't know everything, and there's a very good possibility that all the other things do exist. Sabe exists, and seeing which you're told doesn't exist opens Pandora's box. Thanks again, Steve. Feel free to use my name, Matt Vaughn. Matt, thanks for that share, man. Absolutely appreciate your time, the time you took. Yeah, they do exist, and I think especially today, I don't know, the shit's going on this planet right now today. There's no denying it. Shit's going sideways. I want to find out what and why. I want to find out the whys of everything, you know? I want to know. I'm a little tired of the bullshit, right? Let's keep these shares coming. It's time the people got acknowledged and shared their knowledge. Steve, for a while now, this little experience I had in Bellingham, Washington was so strange, I just filed this enigma away and carried on with my life, waiting for more intel. While listening to people share their experiences on your channel, I learned these things have the ability to covertly live on the edges of civilization, like a divine flick in the head, like my grandpa would do when I needed to pay attention. I solved this enigma. There's a little pond about 5 minutes from my home where I fish almost every day. I just stayed until the sun went down and it became a pain in the ass to thread my line through a hook or lure. It was definitely getting to be that time when suddenly a huge boulder crashed into the water right next to me. Now there have been homeless people in the past to set up tents back there, so my first thought was, effing dick. I quickly realized no man could have thrown this boulder like that. Consider I'm 5'5", 230 with a 485 raw bench, 605-pound deadlift, so I moved heavy shit. No man threw that boulder. As I'm standing thinking, well, I guess that just happened, I hear splashing on the other side of the pond. By this time, the light is almost completely gone, so when I look across the pond, I make out what looks like a big son of a bitch, covered in seaweed, walking into the water. My first thought was, shit, he's headed my direction, and my gut let me know he meant business. My second thought was, well, he's covered in seaweed, so he's probably comfortable fighting in the water. Being 5'5" and 230, my brothers taught me real quick I shouldn't start shit in the pool. By the time I looked down to take some steps back, he was gone. No noise, no splashing, just like a ghost, but it vanished. I'm no pussy, but I bit my line off at my truck. I was gone. Thanks for the platform, Steve. I immediately told my younger brother Chris, and he is well aware I have an issue with liars, having taught him a lesson before. He said, Justin, that's just a crazy story, but seriously, don't ever tell anyone else. I knew he was just looking up for me, but I tried anyways, and quickly realized he was right. Anyways, whenever you decide to share my own good guy army, email me, and I'll join. Anyways, whenever you decide to start your own good guy army, email me and I'll join the ranks. I don't think many people grasp the reality of the situation at hand. You're very smart to use this topic as an avenue of approach. Sincerely, Justin Miele. M-I-E-L-E. Justin, appreciate you, man. Thanks for sharing that. And you've already heard me say it probably dozens of times, but if you come across knowledge that you feel that people need to know that'll help the people, then you speak out loud about it or get it into me and I'll share with the people, alright? So be safe out there, brother, alright? Thanks for the share. 2 stories of savvy encounters in Colorado. First and foremost, it's about time quiet people have been able to tell their story and not get ridiculed. God has really blessed you with the talent to help others. Thank you. Amen. We're all helping each other here, but thanks for the kind words. Just a short background. I'm a Colorado native, born and raised outside the town of Gunnison. I'm a lifelong horseman who put many miles mounted on horses and mules high in the mountains. First encounter was told to me by a dear friend of mine who recently passed away. He and his younger brother were high in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Thought I heard a splush, maybe it was a salmon jumping. The first encounter was told to me by a dear friend of mine that recently passed away. He and his younger brother were high in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. They hiked to a mountain lake to catch a huge brown and rainbow trout. They just topped the ridge above the lake when they saw something in a black color on the bank of the lake. They thought it was just a black bear, but it was very large to be a bear, and then stood erect. My friend was glassing the mass and almost dropped his binos. His younger brother said he didn't need binoculars to know what they were watching. The huge black mass squatted, and was twisting the entire spine of a large bull elk. He also said that he was dunking the spine in the water like he was cleaning the meat. Needless to say, they both ended their day fishing trip. Needless to say, they both ended their 3-day fishing trip. The second encounter was not very far, as the crow flies from Pikes Peak. My friend was a guide/outfitter and had just brought 9 hunters into Spike Camp via horseback. They set up camp and were sitting near the campfire as they drank a couple of beers. The horses were no more than 50 feet from the huge canvas tents. He had set up a quick corral from fallen timber, as he'd always done. As they were talking, getting excited about the hunt, he said he heard the horses getting restless and heard a couple of blows. The blow of a horse that is defensive nature. Steve, you very well know that sound from your horse experience. Next, he heard the thud of horse hooves hitting the timber rails. He said at that point he heard the horses running as they'd broken down the ground. He said he started trying to get the horses back, but they seemed to be very spooked, and he and the hunters had a hard time even seeing them. He ran to his truck and broke out a spotlight and lit up the area very well. He finally spotted the horses running through the break in the trees except one. He then saw the smaller horse a good distance behind the rest. Then his spot lamp soon illuminated a creature that changed everything he believed. The creature was huge, black to brown color, and was pursuing the horse on 2 legs. He said he continued to hold the light on it. It broke away his pursuit and disappeared into the dark pines. The smaller horse was unhurt but trembling as my friend put him back from the crowd. He said that his hunters ended their night and there was a dead, silent feeling as the hunters said nothing. The next morning, my friend said he was putting coffee on the hot coals from the fire when the hunters gathered around and finally one broke the silence. Did we really see what I think? My friend then said that they all nodded and never mentioned it again. Steve, I've been thinking about the rock throwing. I think these creatures actually hunt by throwing rocks as a weapon. Just think of a 700-pound, 800-pound being hurling a rock at a big game animal. I think the creatures use the rock throwing and also let humans know they're there and use it as a kind of a warning. God bless you, Steve. The public now has a place to feel safe. If you're ever down this way, don't hesitate to reach out. You've always got a place to stay. I'm a federal law enforcement officer, so I'm going to ask you to only use my first name as my career has lengthened. I find myself questioning a lot of strange things that get hidden or swept under the rug. Sir, thank you so much for sharing that email, all right? And I know one thing. Most of the guides and outfitters that I know worked with or worked for, they keep their lips sealed when it comes to this topic, but I think more and more are becoming open about it. And I was just informed that the representative for the Guide Outfitters Association here in British Columbia, actually, I think a friend of mine told me that he actually purchased a dozen of my books and mailed them to outfitters, various outfitters. I haven't looked into that myself or looked into who or why or what, but I have a feeling that there may be what would you call it? A group, a secure place amongst outfitters with various outfitters who probably talk to each other openly about this topic. I would imagine that's probably fact. But anyway, thanks for saying that, man. And I'd be curious to know if those hunters completed their hunt or if they left, right? Keep going. Hello, I found your channel through my new boyfriend. He's a hunter and a guide also for several years. He wants me to hunt with him. I love watching your Sasquatch stories and your grizzly stories so far. It's been a marathon watching your channel. Looking forward to my first elk hunt this fall. Alright, well I hope my stories don't ruin it for you. My story is out of Lake Cushman, Washington. My mom and dad live up there in Division 1. They're among the last 20 houses before you hit the forest, and no more houses on the way to Cherokee National Forest in the Olympic Mountains. I was up there several years ago, and it's a hot summer's night. I was upstairs in the house, laying down, sweating, trying to fall asleep. I had the window open, was listening to the outdoors. My mom should be arriving soon from her swing shift job. It was about 11 p.m. All of a sudden, I hear the strangest noise. It was off in the distance, but definitely on our side of the lake. It was pretty loud and close. I got out my iPhone and recorded the sound. It went on for about 10 seconds or so. Then I heard a car drive by. I never heard the sound ever again. The next week I played it for my parents and my two brothers. My father was a hunter in his younger years, and my brothers used to camp out in the woods all the time as kids. They could not identify the sound. My brothers told me about a website that I could submit the sound to see if anyone could identify the sound. I submitted it and no one could identify it. To this day, we were all convinced it was a Sasquatch scream. Unfortunately, I no longer get the phone to work, so I have since lost the recording. I'm a believer. Larissa, Washington State, born and raised, Pacific Northwest. Alright, Larissa, well, you know what? It's probably not that big of a loss. There's a whole pile of recordings out there for everybody to listen to. And I think it's safe to say, recordings or not, these things are running around. Whether they're full-time here, I don't know that myself yet. Whether they're part-time here, I don't know. I do know one thing, I can say with confidence, they're here, right? But anyway, I'm starting to lose light. I wonder if maybe we're gonna go down river and see what's running around down there, maybe sneak up on the other bank and see if we may be able to videotape something cool. And I got so many shares, so many people I want to hear from. We're working my frickin' ass off. There's just no time. There's not enough time in a day, you know. But I'm getting everything done. I'm getting caught up. The pressure of the upcoming fall is just eating at the back of my head. And I got a handful of guide days on the ocean coming up that are eating at me. I got to fix the boat. Got a little bit of a hiccup. Anyway, I'm out of here. But I'm coming back tomorrow. I just discovered on my quad that there's actually a pathway to get through here and cross the river, which goes to some logging roads, which means I'm going to go explore the shit out of the hills right behind here pretty soon. And I take you with me. Anyway, make sure you get some more, get some information, knowledge into me. If there's something that's been eating the shit out of you and you've got nowhere safe to share it, you got a safe place here now, right? We'll be talking to everybody very shortly.